welcome to another episode of the G.I. Joe New News Review. This is David Allen. If you like, you can call me Super Dave 817. I am going to be interviewing a good friend of the channel and a big friend of the G.I. Joe community, Bill Nedrow. Welcome to the show, Bill. Thanks for coming on and talking with us today.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you a little bit.
Hey, it's a pleasure. It's our pleasure. We've known you for quite some time. You've been a member of the G.I. Joe community for quite a long time, as far as I'm aware. You've done a lot of projects in the G.I. Joe community. You've been around. Have you always been a G.I. Joe fan since childhood, Bill?
Absolutely. I remember, I started as a big Star Wars fan, like many of my generation. And I always remember the day my best friend came to school and started talking about these other action figures that had so much better articulation. And I specifically remember him talking about how, a couple of members of the original 13, you couldn't turn their heads all the way around. They had articulation that actually kind of matched, real life, and elbows that could move. And that was my first introduction into G.I. Joe. Pretty shortly thereafter, I got Flash and Zap, and I was off to the races.
So you're an OG guy then, OG 13 guy.
Yeah, very much so. And I got to know them a little better a little later when I started doing some writing. So yeah, that's a core group that's really kind of close to my heart.
I was an OG guy, but I started with the swivel arm OG. So I was a little bit later than the 82 original straight arm guys. So you got me beat by a little bit there. So that's cool.
I think I kind of bridged the gap. Like I know my first two were straight arm. I think my Stalker was a little later, so he's got the swivel arm. I think my Scarlet was a straight arm. So, yeah, I still have them all downstairs. Not necessarily all the thumbs on all of them, especially Zap. But, yeah.
Well, yeah. Zap is notorious for losing his thumbs.
Yeah.
That big bazooka.
Yep. So what I used to do is I would take my mother's curling irons. They had all these little knobs on them. So I'd cut the little knobs off and then glue them back, so they had something there for a while.
Wow. So you're an early customizer then.
Well, not a very successful one, but I tried.
So what do you think it was that about G.I. Joe, and specifically G.I. Joe Real American Hero, that made it such an iconic toy line that we're talking about it all these years later? Because both you and I have been in the community for quite a while, you more than me, but there are groups all around the world that love this brand. What do you think it is about this brand that draws people to it and keeps that heritage going till now?
Storytelling. I give so much credit to Larry Hama for what he contributed to the brand and all of our imaginations as kids. Even if you were a cartoon fan, he influenced the file cards and gave each one of those characters personality. And then, of course, if you were a comic fan, he opened up worlds of possibilities with the characters he created and the situations he threw people in. So, I think it's the storytelling aspects. There's so many strong characters. There's so many dynamics between all the different factions. You had the cartoons, like I said, you had the comics, you had the file cards. I think it's just a fertile ground of imagination for people to kind of jump into and to play.
Yeah, I think we had three different kinds of trains of thought on GI Joe in the 80s to pick from. We could just stick with the file cards and the toys themselves and go with that. We could go with Sunbow, which is a huge contingent of the fan base, that is big into Sunbow. And then there's a lot of the fan base that are hugely into the Larry Hama inspired GI Joe Real American Hero. I fall into the Larry Hama camp because that was my GI Joe. Nothing against the animation Sunbow, because I watched all of it. Don't get me wrong. I just wasn't as drawn to that as I am the comics, and I wasn't as technical when it came to the file cards and that type of stuff. And I know there are people in the community that are. So mine was the Larry Hama universe.
I'm with you too, and what I think is unique about this fandom, and one of the things I love about it is like you said, you would think that it should be so divided, right? Because there's very different takes out there. The Sunbow fans have a very different GI Joe, perhaps, than the Hama fans. But it's so welcoming and so open that's not divisive at all. It's everybody has a broad enough love of the brand that they can accept different variations and different people's opinions. And like I said, it's just kind of a fertile ground for everybody's own unique Joeverse, if you will.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. For those who are joining us in the chat, this is Bill Nedrow. He's a author, writer of comics, and he's been a member of the G.I. Joe community for many years. He's worked for Valaverse, Rising Sun. He's done a couple novels on his own, and he's a teacher as well. So that gives you a little biography to some of the folks in the chat that aren't aware of who you are. And Bobby World, yes, I wish they were doing the file cards. Temporarily, they had started doing those online file cards that the brand team would put out. For a little while. They were doing that. I don't know why they stopped. And then at the very beginning of the classified, they were doing the QR code to the website, and they stopped that as well. I don't know why they're still including those QR codes, because they go nowhere. So there you go. Back to you, Bill.
Yeah, I know that certain figures that there has been copy written for certain characters, but I don't know where they somebody posts them online every once in a while, and I don't know where they're officially posted or why they're not doing more to kind of share that with the community, because
yeah, I agree with you. I don't know where officially they are, but it's the Hasbro team that puts those out there. That's, I think, Tony Colella that's putting that out there. And correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's him that's doing it. Or no, maybe not Tony Colella. It's Matt, the copywriting guy. Matt, there's two Matts. There might be three Matts on the G.I. Joe Hasbro team, but there's a copywriter. His name is Matt. He does that. I think he's the one that's putting out those online file cards. Sorry for getting that mixed up, but there's so much stuff going on, so it's hard to keep track. So back to this. So is this where you got the bug for writing, Bill? Is from G.I. Joe, and you were a comic book guy. Is that not correct?
Yeah, G.I. Joe means a lot to me in terms of my career, because I'd always kind of considered myself a writer. I when I went to school, I studied English with the intent of kind of writing comic books. But I was one of those writers who would, come up with a brilliant idea, and every night I'd sit down at the computer and I'd write out the first couple pages and go to bed thinking I had, finally, written the beginning of the great American novel or whatever. And, the next morning I'd read it and I'd decide it was garbage and I'd throw it away. So it wasn't really until I published my first G.I. Joe novel that I gave myself permission to just write a draft. Because there was kind of a window of opportunity there that I needed to kind of take advantage of. And it kind of forced me to not go through that process where I was questioning myself and trying to make every sentence perfect. So yeah, the first G.I. Joe novel I published is important because it got me over that hump where I finished a draft. I went back. I decided, hey, this actually kind of says what I wanted to say. And then, of course, it was very gratifying to get it out to the public and find that it resonated with other people as well.
where did you get your education? Because I know you're an author and a writer and a teacher. Where did you go to get the education for that?
So I live in Illinois, and I did both my undergraduate and my master's at Northern Illinois University. Um, yeah, I right away knew I wanted to study English because I love storytelling. I love words. I love the way stories inspire people and influence people. So I kind of wanted to study that craft. Um, when I graduated, this was back before the internet. I had no idea how to crack into the comic book industry. Um, I'm not necessarily very proficient at networking, even maybe if I had known how to do it. Um, so I kind of hid back in academia for another couple of years. I went back and got my master's degree.
Ah,
Um, and kind of along the way, um, you know, I before I went to college, had been buying a number of comic books because that was my passion. But when I got up to college, I met a beautiful woman who then eventually became my wife, but left college for a little while. So my comic book budget started being used for phone calls, so they could talk to her every night.
ah,
And like I said, that was the best investment I've ever made because
of course.
we've been married now for numerous decades. Um, but yeah, I kind of stopped reading comic books during college and kind of had to come back to it some years later.
That happens to a lot of us. We all fall out of our collecting hobbies and stuff like that for college, for girls, and then we come back to it after we have a little bit more expendable income, right? You got the story of all of our lives there.
Yeah, yeah. And what was great about that is then I learned that there was half a decade or a decade worth of stories that I could pick and choose and figure out which were the good ones and get people's recommendations and kind of catch up.
Now you spoke about a GI Joe novel that was your first novel. What exactly is that novel, and can you give us a little bit of synopsis about it? Because I was not aware that you wrote a GI Joe novel, or I would have brought it out.
Sure. Yeah, I did. I ended up doing four novels and three novellas. Um, at the time, Hasbro had a licensing agreement with Amazon. It was called Kindle Worlds.
Ah, Kindle Worlds.
So my first novel was called GI Joe First Salvo. All right, and it's now been rebranded. Hasbro has since let the licensing agreement lapse, so they're out of print. But I've been republishing them under a new name, which is DC Colt. So the first two novels are available on Amazon: DC Colt First Salvo and DC Colt Honor. And of course, originally they were published GI Joe under those titles.
Ah,
So First Salvo really kind of looked at the origins of Cobra and dealt with the OG, like you said, the OG 14. I included Shooter
oh,
in the story,
wow.
um, and yeah, dealt with it. I said it in like 1982, so it was kind of concurrent with when that wave of characters came out. But kind of went back and delved into how Vietnam kind of influenced Cobra's formation and Cobra Commander. So there's some years earlier that kind of deal with Cobra Commander kind of setting up Cobra, and then of course Hawk putting together the first team and exposing them to the world. So then the second novel, Honor, what I did was I picked up where that left off, and then I introduced the second class. So Snow Job and Doc and Torpedo, and then each subsequent novel after that, I would introduce kind of the next wave. So the third novel was Body Count, and so who would that? That would have been like Mutt and Blowtorch. It's been a while since I've read that one. And then Dishonor Thy Father was the last one I got out. So that brought in like Flint and Lady J and Quick Kick and all those characters.
Wow, that's interesting. I interviewed, I think Buzz Dixon a while ago, and he did a famous story about like the formation of Cobra as well.
Mhm.
And he did that through Kindle World too. And he said that they had closed it down, and he was really upset about that. That he enjoyed doing writing that way, and he was going to hope to try to get that reworked and maybe put it out some other way. So I'm glad that you were able to do that, and you were able to rework this stuff and make it your own and put it out. Well, it was your own, but you know what I'm saying. Not Hasbro connected and put it out again in a different way. So
Yeah,
very,
when the licensing expired, they said you own the stories, but you can't use the characters. Um, so I mean that's why I had to rename it, and I've kind of gone through and given everybody new code names that I hope are pretty easy to figure out who I'm talking about. Um, but yeah, we had to kind of had to kind of change some stuff up.
Bobby World was wondering, is that where Cobra has the name Arbco? But that was a Larry Hama creation, Bobby World.
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember that filtering through the comic books. Yeah, that was always a nice little anagram.
um, so, where did you go from there? Is that where you got work with Valaverse and Bobby Vala, or is there something in between there that I'm missing?
I think the next major project I did, I did some short stories and some essays and whatnot. The next major kind of writing I did, especially toy related, I did a novel for Marauder Task Force,
Marauder.
and that was called Wrath, which is kind of a line that he's working towards. So yeah, we released that at Joe Fest in, I want to say, 2019.
Oh,
Yeah, it was kind of the big debut. We had, I think we did a small run of hardcovers that were kind of a convention exclusive there. I think we printed 30 of them,
oh,
and then there were a number of paperbacks. Last time I checked, there's still a few of them available on the site. So if anybody's interested in checking those out, you just go to Marauder Gunrunner's website, and I think he's got a few copies of that left. So that was a great collaboration. I really enjoyed kind of building out that world with him, and kind of I took some of his more popular heads and created some characters, and did a cool little story for him.
wow, that's cool. I was not aware of that one. You got me on there. On that. So where does Stiletto fall into this? Because I know there was a contest around the 50th anniversary, 2018, I believe. Was it the first batch of figures, or was it the second 3-pack batch? Because I know Stiletto's in the 2-packs. Was that the first run or the second run?
I think it was the second run.
So that was the second run of the 50th anniversary, and
I
there was
believe
a contest, right? Hasbro had submitted through their socials that you could uh, put in for a chance to get a figure made, and you had to submit a story. And there was 4 final contestants, and you were one of the 4 final contestants.
Yeah, what happened was it was all of us were looking for kind of ways to kind of promote the Kindle worlds. I mean, there was a lot of great writing that was being published through that initiative. And so Daryl DePriest and Mark Weber kind of came up with this contest. They took kind of the 4 most successful in terms of sales authors. And so that was me, Jim Beard, Justin Bell, and Troy Osgood. And they took an original character from each of the authors' works that had been published, and kind of ran this contest. And really, I got kind of lucky because my first 2 books, there's so many great characters from those first couple years. I hadn't needed to create any new characters. So I almost didn't make the cut for the contest because I didn't have anybody in my first 2 novels that would have qualified. But one of the things that I was able to do when I was writing these novels is kind of play against people's expectations. I don't want to give anything away because like I said, I've reprinted some of these novels, and there's especially kind of a big surprise in the end of the first book. But just by virtue of having Shooter in that first novel, there's some expectations that people might have about how how that novel might end or what might happen, and I kind of was able to play against those. Uh, and so in the third book, I also had an idea of some characters that I wanted to use and what I wanted to do, and I needed a character that people didn't have any expectations about that I could use as a kind of get the audience to look one way or to think a certain thing while I was doing something else behind the scenes. And so I created that character, and yeah, just published that in enough time that I was eligible for that contest, and it was really gratifying that it really resonated with fans, and she won. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I was not that familiar with a stiletto. Obviously, I had the toy because I've been getting all the GI Joe figures, not realizing at the point that that came out that you had been the one. I guess I was not following the socials that closely at that point, or I was doing other things or whatever. I don't know, but I'm aware of all those writers, Beard, Justin Bell, and yourself, and the other writer. I'm aware of all of you guys. I've seen all of you appear in the community in socials and different things, and I know several of you guys have done other stuff. Uh, like Justin's worked on the club, he's worked for General's Joe's, he's done a lot of stuff over the years, just like yourself. Both of you are very prevalent in the community, and I think all four of you, the individuals that you mentioned, yourself included, were very prevalent in the community.
One of the great things about that experience was it would have been very easy, I think, for because I'm sure everybody wanted to see, their character, enter the mythos and become a figure. It would have been very easy for all of us to kind of get jealous or competitive. And what really happened was the opposite. We were all incredibly supportive of each other throughout that whole process. We were speaking, online probably 3, 4, 5 times a week. Encouraging each other with our writing, and yeah, I made some really good friends during that. It was of course an honor to see my character being made into an action figure, but being able to bond with those guys and share that with them was also a really great experience.
Give us a little bit of background, because unlike the 80s Joes, there's no file cards on these. So I'm trying to learn a little bit more about Stiletto. Can you give us a little bit background on her?
I'll tell you what, I will, but I'm gonna warn anybody who's watching this. I hope you end up going out and picking up the books in which she's featured. If you're going to do that, I might skip ahead a little bit because there's definitely going to be some spoilers about her character.
All right, so chat, if you guys want to pick up these books from Bill, this is your opportunity to pause this and skip ahead and then watch the rest after he gives us this information. But I want to know, and I think there might be people that do want to know as well.
Okay, so she's originally introduced in the book as the fourth of the Slaughter's Marauders. Okay, she's actually kind of serving as let's say Mercer's bodyguard shortly right after he defects from Cobra. So that's her initial introduction into the mythos, is that she and Tauros and Red Dog and Mercer are kind of fleeing Cobra and trying to make contact with the Joes, who obviously are very interested in kind of debriefing Mercer and learning what he knows about Cobra Island and the organization. What gets revealed later, one of the things that gets revealed later, and this is maybe not even the biggest spoiler of the novel, but really who she is a commander's most trusted agents. So she's revealed.
Triple agent.
Yeah. And so yeah, she's truly a Cobra. She's kind of a Cobra officer. I realized as I was writing that, and this is one of the things that I love about Larry Hama's work and what he did in the comics. Cobra's sorts of diabolical, kind of scheming individuals who are undermining each other and plotting against each other. Cobra Commander really has nobody to trust. Storm Shadow for a while because of the promise he's made, but Destro's got the Iron Grenadiers, and Baroness has divided loyalties, and Major Blood is scheming for his own means. So I wrote Shadow as kind of a character who is fiercely loyal and deliberately loyal to Cobra Commander. And then of course he can't see that, and kind of pays her no regard, because he's constantly focused on all the other things that he has to guard against. He has this one kind of loyal agent who he just kind of, I don't want to say abuses, but ignores, and kind of sets loose to do his bidding when necessary.
Wow. Very interesting. That seems like the perfect bridging point for Mercer in the Skybound comics, because they're using him right now, and we don't know what's going on. It's kind of like very ambiguous. Is he going to defect? What's he going to do? Baroness is a Joe. More spoilers for the Skybound comics folks out there. Mercer is a Cobra, and we don't know what's going to happen with him. Baroness is a Joe, and she's really playing it close to the vest as well. So that would have been a really good story to play right in the middle of what they're doing in Skybound. I think it sounds like it would fit right in there. But that's fascinating. I don't know why I didn't know more about this as many years as I've known you. I don't know why, but it's fascinating. That's really cool. I can see the interesting layers that you have put in place for this character, storytelling, and the elements of storytelling. And I can see why Hasbro liked it, because there's so much to play with there with that character. Wow, very good, Bill.
I was so after the contest ended, I got involved in a really cool project with the other three authors that we had already noted, Justin and Troy. And so I wrote a novella about her that kind of went into her backstory about how she was recruited into Cobra and why she has such loyalty to Cobra Commander. But the way that project started out, Jim Beard said, "Why don't we each write a little novella about each of the characters that were involved in the poll?" He said, "We'll write it in Robin fashions." He said, "So I'll write my story about my character, who was part of the team." And he said, once I publish it, I won't share it with you guys, but whoever's next on deck has to read it and then publish your story, and it somehow has to tie to mine. And then number two, so I picked up a thread from his story, and then wrote kind of an origin story of Stiletto, and then Justin followed me, if I remember correctly, and so he read mine, and then he kind of put his character Whisper, and then Troy, I think, closed us off with his character Blackjack. So it tied into my universe that I was writing, but it also kind of picked up on this 4-part story that we wrote that kind of spans several years, and all kind of took place on an island that Jim created. So that was a lot of fun. It gave me a chance to kind of revisit that character and do a little more with her, and then play with those guys, which was pretty cool.
So now, do you have her out of your head now? You're satisfied with what you've done with her, and now you're moving on to other projects, stuff like that? Or is that one of those things where it never really leaves you, your first love, as they say?
I think I'm done writing her for a while, but if the G.I. Joe team is watching and they want to make her into a cool classified figure, I have room on the shelf for her. And I know we're just getting Mercer in the team, so yeah, if we want a Taurus Red Dog Stiletto, that would be great.
Uh, hey, they own, technically they own the character. They've made a toy of it, and Tony Kalea said at San Diego Comic Con this past Sunday, or this past summer, not Sunday, summer, that there is nothing off the table, and they want to get every character that has ever been a figure as a classified figure. So I would not say that that's impossible. I think that's a very possible uh, uh, scenario that could happen. And
That'd be great.
they've got to find some of these 2000s characters. I just talked about it on a video a few days ago when I went over Kamakura. Is there's so much good characters and rich continuity of Joe lore from the Devil's Due, the New Sculpt era, Valorverse Venom, Spy Troops, Sigma 6, the 50th, the 25th, all this stuff that they could mine. And they focused so much on the OG original, like 82 to 87. They only got like maybe 15 figures to finish 82 to 87. So they're going to be running out of stuff to do. They need to really start getting into some of this stuff. And this seems like a perfectly good character, since we're getting other Marauders and we're getting a lot of stuff from the movie. I think that would be awesome, not only for you, but for us fans too, to get somebody cool, because they did Shooter, and I was not familiar with that version of Shooter, just vaguely, that I knew about the Jim Shooter thing, but I didn't know that much about the character Shooter. And I didn't know she had been changed into an African character either. So, there's a lot of room for us fans that have been in this brand for a long time, or been fans of this brand, to get something new, refreshing, that we could sink our teeth into and enjoy.
Yeah, we're running out of female characters, especially to add to our shelves.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I'm a big fan of the Cobra Plague. So that's a post 94 team that I would love to see. And I mean, there's a lot of reuse of parts with that. It seems like a kind of a no-brainer to me for Hasbro.
Yep.
Sightline, I thought, was a great character that was introduced late in the line. Tombstone,
Yep.
was a Mark Webber creation that I think is another named Cobra that would look great on people's shelves. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there's fertile ground for a lot of made, and a lot of people keep praising what the design team is doing. I hear like, oh, I never thought I'd buy a Crystal Ball, and now he's my favorite character of the year. So yeah, I think whoever they decide to give attention to, they're going to knock it out of the park. It's just been a fabulous line.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. So what was your next project? Now is the Valaverse project that you did for Bobby Vala after the Marauders Gunrunner project?
I think it was. Yeah, I done a couple. Well, I put out a collection of essays about Joe Khan, but that's kind of nonfiction.
Was that a part of the newsletter, the Joe Khan newsletter?
No. Again, Jim Beard had done a book called The Joy of Joe. And I contributed an essay to that. That was, I mean, as the title suggests, just kind of a love letter to the brand, all eras of the brand. And I'd contributed an essay to that and helped co-edit. So then when I was leaving the last JoeCon, I was in that big panel at the end when it was kind of the big farewell. And then my wife and I started to drive home, and I thought, like, well, maybe we should do a sequel that talks about people's convention experiences. So reached out to a number of people in the community and gathered up a bunch of essays and kind of published that. It's called The Joy of Joe Con. It's available on Amazon. Both books, The Joy of Joe and The Joy of Joe Con. So yeah, then I think Valaverse was the next fiction that I did. And I started off, before I did the novel, I did the comics for him.
So how was that relationship? Because he worked at Hasbro for quite a while, for like 10 years or so. And he did Marvel Legends. He worked on G.I. Joe. He worked with Transformers. Did a lot of stuff for Hasbro before branching off and creating the Valaverse. So how did you meet him, and how did that scenario come to be?
I think it was at Joe Fest when we were releasing the Marauder Task Force novel. He was there showing off The line wasn't out yet, but I think he had the prototypes and the test figures or whatever. And like I said, I had worked with Daryl DePriest and Mark Weber through the Kindle Worlds thing, so we had some common friends. So at some point, I think I just walked up to him and told him how much I was loving, what he was showing off and the great characters he was creating. And again, for me, it always goes back to story. I love great action figures, but if there's some sort of story behind them, it just makes me want to collect them more. So I said, I'd work with him. I'd love to kind of help develop, some because he obviously had a lot of story already built into these characters. And I said, if there's ever a chance to kind of get some of that story out there and get people more excited about the line, I'd love to be a part of that. And fortunately, he took me up on it. It was a great experience.
Wow. So how much did you do for them? Was there, what was it, 2 graphic novels you did?
I think I did 7 issues, and then he did one himself on Pandora. And then eventually he collected it into a big trade paperback, so they were all available in one kind of edition.
Oh, so it was one trade paperback, but all 8 issues were in that.
Correct.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
He
particularly loves Pandora. That's his favorite character. So I think he wanted a chance to do one himself and put out a really cool story about her.
Now, is there a place to get all that as well?
The issues were available on his website. I think the trade paperback has been sold out. I think the last time I was on the website, it wasn't available. He hasn't talked to me about whether or not he has any intentions to do a future run of that. But last I checked, some of the issues were available online. I think also Amazon had, print copies and digital copies. So if he might be out of some issues on the website, they may be available on Amazon.
Oh, cool. That's interesting. I would be interested in getting that. I think I've spoken to you about that, trying to find that. And I think you told me that it was out of stock on the website. So I'll have to reach out to him and see about that, because I would like to get that. I would like to get your Marauders graphic novel as well, just to have a catalog of all your writing, because obviously I'm fascinated with your storytelling. So after the Valaverse and the Marauders, what's the next project that you've got on the burner?
Well, I had done some writing for another comic company, Rising Sun. I'm not sure how much I can or want to talk about that. You could maybe.
So let's go into it. So that was your next project after the Valaverse stuff, was working with Rising Sun Comics International.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a gentleman, a graphic designer, Tim Ellis, that had posted a fan piece of artwork that he put out to the fans. Hey, would anybody be interested in revisiting, I think, the Adventure Team? And this piece of artwork it was like 2020, I believe, and it had Eagle Eye, Bullet Man, Power Man, and the Commander on the cover of this. And it was an attempt to see if anybody would want to work with him on this project and grab this idea. And so Rising Sun did that. Hawk Sanders, the president of Rising Sun at the time, he was the president of Rising Sun Comics International at the time, grabbed that idea and put together a team of editors and a writer and a creator. Tim Ellis was the creator. You're the writer. I was an assistant editor on that project, and Hawk was the editor on that project. Then COVID hit, and then life hit, and that got put on the back burner for a little over a year. We did all the ideations. We had come up with all the scripts for the first 3 issues, the character development, and there was a pitch to Hasbro, and there was also a 3 panels that we discussed that concept, returning of the adventure team, revisiting the adventure team with a new, unique, um, um, vi- uh, a unique way of looking at it, updating it, mainly for modern audiences. The writing, the characterization would be today's style of doing comics, and the comic itself is retro, which would be it would be using the color elements of how comics were colored, a larger size comic like they made comics in the 70s, because this is from the 70s, and this whole package was developed by the four of us, and so you were brought on as a writer, and you wrote the first 3 issues, and now you are writing the next arc for Rising Sun, and that idea was the center of an entire universe that we have now mushroomed out from those 3 issues that you helped develop and create with the 3 of us. Now there are like 12 books that we're in development on, all at different levels: art, coloring, writing. Uh, and so they all start with these 3 issues. And it's called the Adventure Team. And the company is called Retro Comics. And we have some very good uh, writers, famous writers. You're a very well known writer yourself. And each book and each project, it's got its slight own identity, but they branch out from this core idea that you, Tim, Hawk, and I developed, um, where a cataclysmic event hits the earth and it brings the adventure team back together, and they have to go up against many obstacles, different levels of obstacles and adversaries and issues that they're struggling with themselves, and war itself, and going to war, and the saving the earth from this cataclysm that has engulfed the planet. Um, so now you can talk about it.
What one of the so gratifying about being brought onto that project was that it gave me a chance to kind of revisit, or I guess not revisit is the wrong word. Experience GI Joe from an era that it had eluded me up to that point, right?
Yep.
Like I said at the beginning of the show, I kind of came in around '82. Um, so anything that came before that, I was, somewhat familiar with just by being a fan of the brand, but had never really delved into. So yeah, to kind of go back into the '70s and meet some of those characters and really get to know what they're about and how they interact has been a lot of fun.
They're
And
not exactly like they were in the 70s because of copyright and trademark issues. We had to get the copyrights and trademarks, which we did. So we did change them slightly. You will recognize all the characters, but there are variations of the characters. And like I said earlier, we wanted really modern storytelling elements like uh, social economic issues, um, dealing with war and how that affects people in war and soldiers and going to battle, and very mature storytelling. And one of the things that struck me about Larry's comic is he never wrote down to me. I might have been 8 years old when I started reading those comics, but he was not writing to an 8-year-old. He was writing to an adult in those stories. And there's some very mature themes in those stories. So we wanted to continue that. And we thought you were a great person to do that.
Well, and yeah, we had a last week an editorial meeting, and you brought that up. How even in those first three issues, we jump right into some really sophisticated stuff, which has been great because I think that really leads to characterization, and you caring about characters. And my approach to writing is if you care about the characters, you're going to care about the plot because you're invested in their lives and what they're going through and the dangers that they're facing. So yeah, it was a great storytelling beginning because right off the bat we said that we're going to jump into it and we're going to present a book that's really going to captivate people.
And we kind of had to go backwards because we started with with some serious stuff, and I think you may have even questioned us, like, do we want to go there now? And then we, after a while, we were like, I think we're gonna have to go back. We're gonna have to start this at a different point because it was really very mature, very strong characterization and stuff like that. So that had to have been difficult on you.
Well, what was fascinating about it was that, and again, I don't want to give anything away to the book, but we it could be argued that we jumped into the middle act, right? Something had happened before the book, before page one, issue one, that that directly and irrevocably impacted all of the heroes, and so they're already coping with that, as soon as we meet them, and that's going to play a major part in all their lives and what they do moving forward.
Bobby World has a question for you. We'll get back to that in just a moment. Bobby World asks, when you're writing your book, do you have an idea of where you're going, but then when you start writing, you find out it takes a whole different direction? Oh boy.
Yes,
I'm going to let you answer that, but I could answer that one too.
yes, I have had that experience, and it's very fascinating. There have been books that I've sat down and thought, like, I know exactly what the beginning, middle, and end are. There have been books, for example, the second book, Honor. I had no idea where it was going to go. I just knew where the first book ended and what naturally had to follow. But yes, in both of those cases, as you get into the writing, there comes a point where I don't want to say the agency's taken away from you, but suddenly you find yourself going down a path that you didn't anticipate, but it makes sense for the characters, it makes sense for the story, and you just kind of have to follow it. And that's really gratifying because you end up, I hope, with a story that's even better than the one you had envisioned because it's natural to the plot, it's natural to the characters, and it's really fun to write because you suddenly realize, like, oh, this has to happen, and I didn't anticipate that.
I'm right there with you because uh, it's not it's not well known at the moment, but there's a anthology series that Rising Sun's been doing for 100 issues called CTE, and we're relaunching it. And I'm writing the primary stories for this. And I started writing it. I knew exactly. I had thought about this for quite a long time. There was meetings and this and that, and I had all this worked out. I knew the ending to the first issue story, and it's only 8 pages, right? So I have this all worked out, and I know where this is gonna end. But then when you're in it, you're like, wait a minute, this is getting interesting and fun. Where can I go with this? What can I do with this character and stuff like that? And so you're in a position like, wait a minute, how am I going to get it to this end point? Because now I'm all excited and I'm like, wait a minute, I want to do this and this and this, and I've got to get it to where it needs to end. And that's the fun thing about writing. It's the difficult thing about writing as well, but it is the fun thing about writing. And as an editor, I know what needs to be done, where we're starting and where we're ending. But when I have a writer like yourself, I line I line those bowling pins up for you, and I give you the point A and point X, and I'm like, okay, here you go. This is what we need to happen, but you can start here and end here, and then you do all kinds of phenomenal stuff. For the first arc of Adventure Team, you did some incredible cool stuff, and that helped us kind of lean into the next arc, and it's going to help us lean into the third arc. But we have these arcs and we know what we want to accomplish, but really, you as a writer, you can do all kinds of stuff. It hopefully that's not inhibiting to you, and hopefully it's not um, not harder than you would imagine working in that kind of those parameters either.
Writing. I'm going to qualify this. The writing process is always fun. Sometimes sitting down and hammering out paragraphs is not a joy, but no, working within those constraints can be very gratifying. And I was just thinking, I hope this answers the question. I'm not going on too much of a divergent path, but I was just thinking about the first G.I. Joe novel I wrote. I had Rock and Roll and Short Fuse undercover, and then they had to escape. And so for several nights while I'm writing that chapter, like you said, I knew the end point. They had to get away. They had to get this intelligence back. But I had created such difficulties in getting them there that as I'm writing, I'm trying to figure out how they're gonna escape. And so at certain points I was like, geez, I don't even know if they can. Like that. One of them might not make it. So I'm hoping that if I'm feeling that tension and trying to figure out as a writer, like, man, how am I going to get them off this compound? How am I going to get them away from these HISS tanks? That the reader's feeling that kind of same emotion and feeling that drama.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my goal is to put my characters in as much peril as I can, and then hopefully be clever enough to figure out a way to get them out of it. And so sometimes it doesn't happen, and it's you find an unexpected injury or death or casualty because that's just what has to happen for the plot to make sense.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that, because that's how Larry writes. Actually, he writes the story naturally, page by page, and he gets to a point where he has a cliffhanger, or he has something going on, and he has to figure out when he gets to the next issue, that first page, how he's going to get out of that. He's said this in many interviews over the years, and I think that's a very interesting writing approach, and it has garnered him an Eisner and a Jack Kirby award because of it, because of his writing style, and I think it's obviously a legitimate way to write. So if that's your style, that's your style. There's all different types of styles of writing, but I am not a very good when it comes to writing. I'm terrible at like breaking it down into like pages. I just write the story naturally, and then I'll try to do a beginning and an end. But trying to do panels and try to put the characters like through this A B C D, I'm terrible at that. I leave that to you. I'm a better editor. But I have editors that can edit my writing, so that's the good thing about that. There are other editors. Hawk's gonna have to deal with my writing. So that's interesting. But yeah, I love that. I think that's fantastic, Bill. And I've seen your writing, and I love it. I think you do a fantastic job. We got a lot of history, I guess, for the last 4 years, if you want to say, and there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be working on in the future. So I'll give you the audience, I'll give you a little bit of tidbit. We got more coming, and a lot of it. Bill is going to be connected to us for a while, right, Bill?
I hope so. I hope so. I'm having a lot of fun. And another thing I love about this project is it's gotten me out of the realistic military fiction genre, which I've kind of done, a few times now, and kind of get back to maybe some of my comic book roots, where more kind of fantastical characters who can do a little more. So that's been a lot of fun for me too.
Yeah. The Cataclysm gives. I can't say what the Cataclysm is, but there will be different layers of adversaries, different layers of action and stuff like that. Uh, that we're going to be dealing with, and that gives you a wide um, I don't know if the leash is the right word or rope, a wide rope to develop these characters with, and it. I don't think it constrains you because you have a lot of choices, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a big palette to play in. So that's been great. I've been able to kind of set my imagination loose, and like I said, find some really perilous situations to throw these characters in. These characters who I've grown to love, and yeah, want to see succeed, but have to challenge them in every page and every panel.
Well, and I can see your style on the characters. I'm very involved with these characters. You know that because we have meetings, and you can see my own passion and stuff. And I'm kind of a writer in my own way, not the way you are, obviously, but I am passionate about these characters. But I can see your imprint on the characters every page and stuff like that. And I think it's a collaborative, because I think Tim brought a lot to it. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Tim. He came up with this concept. He helped us develop it. Hawk and myself helped sculpt it. We'll be like the sculptors, right? We kind of sculpted this idea, and you kind of filled it in and made it a world and made the characters live and breathe and make them human, for lack of a better term. And I think you're 100% right. The reader, when they get to this point, when they're going to be able to read this, and we hope it will be um, next April will be a soft rollout, and then Joe Fest 2026. This is an exclusive for this interview. We will have the grand, our premiere and our grand rollout for our comics company, Retro Comics, and the Adventure Team, and we will have a panel at Joe Fest for that. So you will be at that, I believe, with the whole team, and so yeah, I can see your footprint on all these characters.
And like I said, it's been so much fun getting to know them, and yeah, figuring out how they're going to react to these different situations that they're encountering, and like I had alluded to, had already, so that they're already coping with things by the time we meet them. And so yeah, we're gonna put them through as much peril as we think they can handle, and maybe even more than they can handle, and see how they come out on the other side.
Which I'm very, very thankful that we have collaborated with you, Bill. I can't, I can't say enough about you as a professional and a great writer and a collaborator and knowledge, because you bring a lot of knowledge. Obviously, you have more knowledge than me on certain aspects of the brand, but we all do. Hawk, yourself, and I all have a lot of experience in this brand, and we bring a little bit different perspective to it. And I think that helps that we're a team. And now I have been promoted to full editor, and Hawk is over the umbrella of the Retro Comics. So he's the head editor for all 12 books that we're developing in many different facets. And I'm now the full editor on this project. So you and I are hip deep in this next arc, and I look forward to it. I think it's phenomenal, and it's been a pleasure working with you on this project.
Well, congrats on the promotion. Then it's well deserved.
Thank you very much. So, what else you got coming down the pike? Anything interesting that you can speak of?
Um, there's another novel that I've been working on that I've just been working with the art on the cover. So I hope to announce that in another maybe week or so. Um, so I will do my best to blast that out there as much as I can. I do have a Facebook page. Just send me a friend request. Or I also have an author page. I think it's Bill Nedrow's GI Joe novel. Um, so as soon as I'm ready to kind of let everybody know that that's out, I'll be blasting that out there on social media as best I can. So yeah, look forward to that. I think that's maybe all I want to say at this point.
Okay, that's
Um,
fine. You kind of brought up an interesting thing there about social media and today's um, world. Social media plays a major part of how we promote, how we discuss, how we socialize, and things like that. How have you interacted in that arena, the social media arena, like doing interviews like this on YouTube and Facebook and things like that? Is it difficult?
I would say that I've done it very poorly. Um, I'm not. I'm. It doesn't come naturally to me to self promotion and kind of getting in people's faces and letting people know that I have this stuff. So it's forced me to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. I have traveled to conventions. Especially early on when the GI Joe stuff was out. I was the one who kind of talked to Daryl DePriest and made sure that there were panels at JoeCon, promoting these works. I don't think I would naturally be on social media if it wasn't so that I could promote a lot of the writing stuff. So that's kind of why I've set up an account. I'm really fortunate to have someone like my wife who's an extrovert, where I'm the introvert. Um, so she forces me to kind of get out of my comfort zone and talk to people and put the message out there. So I'm learning, and I'm doing my best.
It can be overwhelming at times when you're trying to do something, trying to promote something, thinking to yourself, is this the right way to go? Is this the right thing to do? Am I putting out the right message and stuff like that? So it's been a learning curve for me. I was not big into the social media aspect of this brand for quite some time. Yeah, I was on Facebook and I was watching. I would be uh, um, affectionately coined as a lurker, I guess, for
Mm.
quite a while until I started uh, doing interviews. And I had did plenty of interviews in the comic world myself through Newsarama and comics related for many, many years. But in the comic world, in a comfortable place where I knew about the comic industry. I knew the creators. I knew the people that worked in the industry, the writers, the artists, and how that functioned. I was not as familiar with the toy world and definitely not the GI Joe world until about 2010 when I got involved. And then I started. I think my first interview was with Roger Taft for After Action Report, and that was maybe 2021, maybe 2022. I can't remember when I did my first interview. And then people were like, David, you really need to get off of Facebook. You need to get onto YouTube. And so it was a lot of YouTube creators that had content that was saying you're doing a really good job on these interviews, but they're getting buried. The next person after your post starts to bury you, so no one's going to see this. And so YouTube, as as you go, you get an audience, you get your subs grow and grow and grow, and the algorithm affects that and gets it out to more people, and you can get a better showing, and you can still share it on Facebook and Instagram as well. And so it's a learning curve. It's not something that came to me naturally, obviously, because I've had to go through all these steps, whereas other people had YouTube channels for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And so I'm there with you. I understand. Thankfully, Rising Sun has a very good media department, and they're very good at that media relations and stuff. So we will not have any problems with doing Adventure Team and all that stuff like that. And so I'm glad that you're getting out there, because yeah, I didn't know a lot about that stuff. It's only through investigating and looking into some of your works that I found out about it, and that's why I wanted to talk to you more about it. I thought the community might want to learn about you and learn more about your works and that you've done and your involvement with this community.
Well, I really, sorry, my dog is making a noise. Yeah, I really appreciate you extending the invitation so that I can kind of, yeah, let people know what I've been doing. And um, like I said earlier, I've been very fortunate that what I have put out has really seemed to resonate with people, especially fans of properties. So I hope I don't sound vain in saying, but I do think that some of the things I've done will kind of resonate with people who haven't checked them out. And I'd love to know that I'm reaching those people and sharing some really great stories with them and providing some entertainment for them.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. So I wanted to say, Bill, thank you for taking the time tonight to speak with us, and thank you for answering some of the fans' questions. So, fans out there, members of my channel, please share, like, subscribe, hit that notification button for future interviews and future videos. I hope to be doing some more interviews in the near future. And Bill, as always, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to our future involvement and seeing you at conventions. And thank you again for your time tonight.
Oh my goodness, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking to you about all these stories that we're working on together, and I'll definitely see you in Augusta in, was that June?
Yep, June
Okay.
21st and 22nd, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, my wife last night was looking at starting to make her travel plans. So yeah, can't wait to see you there.
So everybody in the chat, if you want to see Bill and you want to go to our panel, our Adventure Team Retro Comics panel, please go to JoeFest 2026, June 21st through the 23rd, I believe, is the dates. We're going to have 3 days this year. Won't be two, be 3 long days with tons of activities, tons of guests. We've already announced one major guest for Joe Fest 2026, Sergeant Slaughter, one of the family. And I look forward to seeing all of you guys at Joe Fest. And I look forward to seeing you there as well, Bill. It's going to be phenomenal. So, all right, everybody out there, thanks again. And we will see you in the next one. Have a good night.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, David.